Hello, I'm Chris from Big Cheat Games, and today I'm going to take you through the game Grid of Shadows. This is a social deduction and bluffing game where it's not what you play, it's what you say you play. The game is played on a 3x3 grid, and the aim of the game is to get rid of all of your cards as quickly as possible, but it's quite hard to do that, so there is a final challenge if the draw pile runs out, where everyone has the opportunity to reduce their score at the end of the game. So after the final challenge is over, we will be looking at our cards and counting the total number, and that is your end score. Now the victor, once we've gone through the final challenge, is the person with the lowest score, so make sure you try and get rid of your higher cards. Now the other thing I will mention, a little bit of a spoiler, is that some of the card rules are not very nice. So if we look at the 9 here, every time you play a 9, you pick up 2 cards. So the game also has incentives to bluff. I hope you enjoy the how to play. So the short backstory is you're a group of wanderers who have been trapped inside the Shadow Realm. Now the only way to exit the Shadow Realm is by playing the Grid of Shadows at the mercy of the Shadow Lord, with only one person being able to escape if they are victorious in the game. Now, let's go deeper into the story. It began with a single touch, a strange pulsing artifact, a relic none of you fully understood. The moment your fingers brushed its surface, the world around you collapsed into darkness. When you awaken, you're lying on cold ground. A heavy shadow fog clings to the air. Shapes drift at the edge of your vision, figures, eyes, watching you then vanishing as soon as you try to focus. Alone and disorientated, you wander through the gloom until faint glowing lights shimmer in the distance. As you move towards them, they sharpen into a grid-like structure, floating, shifting, humming with quiet power. One by one, you find the others from your group gathering there, drawn by the same unearthly glow. From behind the grid, the shadows twist and the Shadow Lord emerges. He tells you that the Grid of Shadows is a game, a cruel one, and that you may earn your freedom by playing it. But only one of you will escape back to the human realm, the rest will belong to him. Horrified, you refuse. Surely there must be another way, but the Shadow Lord simply smiles and waits. And so it begins. Every night, at precisely 3 AM, he returns, asking, whispering, inviting, tempting, the same offer over and over. Days blur into weeks, weeks decay into months. A full year passes in the darkness. Hunger, fear and despair gnaw at your group. No one has found an escape, and the Shadow Lord never stops asking. Finally, exhausted and hopeless, your group agrees. You will play. You must play. Because now you remember the Shadow Lord's final warning. Only the winner returns to the human realm. The others will be consumed by the shadows forever. So guys, thanks for that. Thanks for listening. Okay, so the aim of the game in the Grid of Shadows is to become the victor and essentially be the only one to leave the Shadow Realm. So there's 2 ways that you can do that. The first way is to get rid of all your cards during the main game, and the second way, if nobody has removed their cards by the time the draw pile has run out, then you, after the final challenge, you calculate the cards left in your hand. So for example here, I would have 3 cards remaining, each of them have an 8, so I would have 24 points at the end of the game. Okay, so to set up the game, deal 7 cards to each player. So I will set up for a 2-player game. Now the game is rated 14 plus and it's suitable from 2 to 6 players. Okay, so now I've done that, so that's 7, that's 6. Okay, now what we also need to do is set up the grid. So it's a 3x3 grid, and once I've done that, I'll put 2 cards to the side, and they will be important for the final challenge. So I set up 3x3, I put 2 cards to the side for the final challenge. Notice that all of the cards are played face down, that's important, and the remaining cards for the draw pile. So now each player has 7 cards in their hand. They may look at their cards but do not show the other players because they will be trying to see when you were bluffing or not. Okay, so now to decide who goes first. The player who goes first receives the starting token, and the decision is basically the last person who entered the room. So if you know this rule already, you can maybe enter last and not tell anyone the rule, and you have a slight advantage. So if you're the first player and you have the player token, you may turn over 2 cards on the grid for free. So I will do that now. Okay, so I've turned over a 1, a blue 1, and I'm going to go for this middle card, and that is a yellow 2. Okay, so it's also important for me to mention that you don't get to turn over 2 cards for free at the start of everyone's turn. It's only at the very beginning of the game, and if lights has been called, but we will get to lights later. Okay, so at the beginning of your turn, what you should do is look at your cards and see if there's any numbers matching the ones that are shown on the grid. So for example, in this case, I have 2 yellow 1s. So I've got these 2 yellow 1s here. Now, on your turn, you may do basically 2 things. You can play on a face-up grid card, or if you don't want to do that, let's say none of them match, and you don't fancy bluffing at this time, you may turn over a card, and once you've turned over a face-down grid card, you pick up a penalty card, and then you may also play on any 3 of these face-up cards. Now, I will do this, so I've got 2 yellow 1s. Now what's important to mention is that I'm playing these 2 yellow 1s on this blue one, so at this point the number is the only thing that matters on the face-up grid cards. The colour doesn't matter. So I'll now put down 2 yellow 1s, and I will say this to everyone: I've played 2 yellow 1s. You can also be lying because you play every card face down. Now, after I've said I've played 2 yellow 1s, now the next player, if they want to contribute to my turn, must also play a yellow 1. So after you've played your card face down, we then go into the sequence phase. This is where each player gets the opportunity to play or pass. Once everybody has passed, the token then goes to the next player after doing the card rules. So to give you an example, I've played here now 2 yellow 1s. If we look at player 2's hand, he does not have yellow 1s. Therefore, they can either play, which would be a bluff, or they can pass. Now, for example, if I played a yellow 4, because I play it face down, player 1 does not know if I have played truthfully or incorrectly. Now, player 1 has the opportunity to call lights. Also keep in mind that there are only 4 cards of this colour. So if somebody plays the 5th yellow 1, something suspicious is happening there. If someone calls lights, you must reveal the last player's cards. So for example, if the last player, player 2, only played the 4, you only reveal the 4. Now, if player 2 also plays a 4, player 1 passes, it goes back to player 2, and they put on another card. That means that player 2 must reveal the last 2 cards because it was still their play, right? So in this case, player 2 has played now a 4 and an 8 on top of player 1's 2 yellow 1s. However, this no longer matters. As soon as somebody plays a card on top of your turn, their turn is the one that you can call lights on. Okay, so player 2 has been caught bluffing, player 1 called lights. Now that means that they reveal their cards, and there's a penalty to be paid. So if somebody was bluffing, or if somebody calls lights and the player was not bluffing, they receive the same penalty. Now, the penalty is you get all of the cards from the one that was played on, including the one that was face up. So you get all of these cards. In addition, you get one card from the draw pile. And then that is the end of the turn. Now, the only difference is if someone was telling the truth, for example, if I said 2 yellow ones and I turn it over and it was 2 yellow ones, we still do the card rule. If they were not telling the truth and we turn it over, we do not do that card rule. Okay, so now we've talked about lights, and the other option was that every player has passed. So in the case that every player has passed, then we go to the card rule. We do not reveal the cards that were face down. We assume that the rule was correct, and therefore we always play the card rule. So if every player passes, we play the rule that was on the face up grid card. So in this case, again, we have the 1. It doesn't matter if somebody has put down a 4 or a 7, we won't see that, and then we will play the rule of the 1. Okay, so now we go to the card rules. Now remember, if lights was called and a bluff was revealed, then we don't play the card rule. Otherwise, if light was called and the card was correct, or everyone has passed in a round, we do play the card rule. So every card has a power. On the card it says whether or not it is the first to be played, the last to be played, or each time played. So with each time played, for example, if I played a 9 and I'm the first person to play the 9 on a face-up 9 card, so let's just swap this for the example. So if player 1 played a 9, player 2 played a 9, and player 3 played a 9, because the card says each time played, that means every person who played a 9 would have to pick up 2 cards. Now, in addition, if you were player 1 and you decided to play 2 9s, because it's each time played, you would have to pick up 4 cards. So that basically means if you play a 9 on a face-up 9, then each time you play a 9, you have to do the card rule. Or, for example, with the 6, it is the last played. So if you were the last person to play the 6 in the sequence, then you would be playing the card rule. Now, each card rule has different rules to it, and they're all written on the front of the card. So for example, with the 6, here it says draw 2 cards, swap 1 with a grid card, return the other to the deck. So that means I draw 2 cards, I swap 1 with a grid card, discarding this grid card, and return the other to the bottom of the deck. Now, another thing about the grid, if there are 3 or more cards on top of a face-up grid card, the grid becomes unstable and these cards are all discarded. And when that happens, a new card is put face down onto the grid. And then finally, if somebody does call lights, then the balance of the grid must be restored, and that means that all of the cards that face up are discarded and replaced with new cards. So now we move to the next player's turn. And again, because somebody has called lights during this turn, they get to turn over 2 for free, and then they may start the turn. However, if nobody called lights and there's a face-up grid card, or if there's not a face-up grid card because the grid has become unstable and you've removed it, then they must go to the original rule, which is play or flip. Now, with lights, you turn over 2 for free, as we've mentioned. Otherwise, we go straight to play or flip, and we start again. So again, I look at my cards, I see, okay, that's nice. I have 2 blue 8s, and I can then play them face down on the yellow 8. And we proceed like this. So each player gets the chance to play or flip. Then if they play, we go to the sequence phase where people can add on top. If lights are called, we reset the grid and a penalty, a punishment is made, and then after that we play the power if the lights was truthful or if everybody passed, and if someone was bluffing and the card does not exist or is not correct, then we don't play the power. Okay, so play proceeds in clockwise order, passing the player token to each player before they start their turn. Now, what happens at the end of the game if nobody has been able to remove their cards? So now we go to the final challenge. This happens when the draw pile has run out, so the draw pile is now in the discard pile, and no single player has been able to get rid of all their cards. So what this means, you remember we put 2 cards at the side of the grid at the start of the game. Now these 2 cards now join the grid, and from this point forward we must play honestly. So how to do it? So I look at my cards, and what I'm looking for is to match the number and the colour. So previously I only needed to match the number on the grid and I played face down. Now I need to match the number and the colour and I play face up. So luckily for me, I have a yellow 10. So I play down the yellow 10. If you had 2 yellow 10s, you could play 2 yellow 10s. But if you had a blue 10, that doesn't match the number and the colour. So I play down my 10 and I end my turn. Now to end my turn, I flip over a new grid card. And now it goes to player 1. So player 1 will look at their cards and they will see, okay, I've got a blue 5, that's nice. And that would be all for now. So then player 1 would play their blue 5 face up, which would then get rid of these cards, so you have to remove them, discard them. And then to end their turn, they would turn over another card. Now again, this is a yellow 10, so we know that player 2 doesn't have a yellow 10, so therefore they pass. Player 1 then has another opportunity, and looks like I don't see any. Oh, I got a 4, upside down 4. Okay, so they play a blue 4. It basically proceeds like that until either nobody can play truthfully anymore, or we run out of grid cards. Okay, so at the end of the game, you need to calculate the cards that you have left in your hand. So you would be adding up these numbers, and as you can see, therefore you have a massive disadvantage if you have 10s, 9, 8s in your hand versus just having 1s, 2s and 3s. Okay, so as you can see here, this player on the left has 53 points. I might have calculated that off camera, and player on the right has 39. So the player who has won the game in the end is the player on the right with the lower score. And they have escaped the grid of shadows. Now, if we come to play the game again, that would mean the right hand side player, let's say player 2, would be the first one to start. Okay, so if you have made it all this way to the end without skipping or falling asleep, then congratulations, because we are now at the end of the how to play video for Grid of Shadows. One thing that I will say is that we are launching on Kickstarter very soon, or if not right now, and included in Kickstarter we have some new cards with new rules which are still slightly under development, and these are going to make the game also for advanced players. So again, thanks a lot for watching, and if you support us, thank you for that as well, and we hope to deliver Grid of Shadows to you shortly.